Thanks, everybody. It's 1:04 p.m. on Tuesday, April 2nd. I'm going to start or call to order the Environmental Advisory Council meeting. My name is Anana Thone. I'm chair, and I'm going to go through. Let's start with Robin.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Robin Kay from Lanai.
Thank you, Robin. Michelle.
Michelle Lefebvre on Hawaii Island.
Thank you, Mary.
Hi, Mary Berger from Hawaii Island.
Thanks, Mary. Steph.
Aloha, Steph Dunbarco.
Thank you, Steph. Tessie.
Aloha, Tessie from Kauai Island.
All right. Thanks, Tessie. And I'll go over to Mary Alice.
Mary Alice Evans, staff to EAC.
Tom Eisen, planner with the Environmental Review Program.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Don, I'll go to you.
Don Hager, Island of Maui.
Thanks, Don. And Allison?
Allison Hato, Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anybody else on the ERP staff separate from you, Tom?
I think there could be some others listening somewhere else.
Okay.
They were going to be monitoring and acting as co-host.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you folks very much. So first things first, we'll go to Mary Alice for the director's update. And congratulations on being confirmed.
Thank you very much. Are we unmuted and you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tom and I and our staff, Kim and Jen, and soon to start, Kaylee Yoshioka, have been tracking legislation and working on various tasks related to the environmental notice. And some of them are interesting, and I'll let Tom follow up on that. Go ahead.
Yes, well, just doing the day in, day out stuff of getting the notice published. That's just a big part of what we've been doing, and certainly looking forward to having a fuller staff so that we can go beyond the mere basics.
How many came in last night?
Actually, yesterday on submittal, only one came in, but we had 5 submitted previously.
So total of 6 for the April 8th.
April 8th. So I'm
environmental notice.
Yeah, the deadline to submit was yesterday. And so it gets exciting on that day and for the next days as the notice comes together.
So actually quite a bit of activity is showing up in the environmental notice. And that's, I think helpful both for disclosure and the public's opportunity to weigh in, and also as an indicator that agencies are trying to, update, maintain, and carry out various repair, maintenance, and building of new facilities. So I think it's, that activity is very helpful. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you for
I was wondering, does OPSD track visits to the environmental notice? Like, does it track how many clicks or like volume for exemptions or for the EAs or for the EISs that are published?
We use MailChimp to send it out, and MailChimp does keep some statistics on just clicks on the email notice that presumably you get, and then how many open the document. What they do once their eyeballs are on the document, we don't know. It doesn't go into that level, but we do look at it. Those statistics is somewhere around 40% seems to be an average number of people that receive the subscribers, and there's about 1,300 subscribers, and it seems like maybe around 40% actually look at the email, and most of those open the document.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
So Tom, that's about 500 recipients are opening the document?
Yes, that's what it appears to be. each time.
That's good. So just from the environmental notice, but there's no data on clicking through the EAS library, for example. Yeah.
No, maybe somewhere deep down in some IT thing they can figure that out. We don't keep track of that data.
Yeah. That would be interesting too for exemptions to know, how, just to your point, Mary Alice, that it increases visibility, but it would be nice to know how visible, how many folks are clicking and reading the details of the exemptions and the other documents published.
Speaking to that just a little bit without going too far into a rabbit hole, I remember talking with Ron as the head of the exemptions committee, because in these one aspect with exemptions is the agencies file this monthly list of exemptions. So we're trying to get a sense of that, added some work and like, what's the value of that work? And as you may know, that this list for each agency has one point of contact for that agency. So if anybody sees anything that looks marginally interesting on this list, unfortunately, it's a dumb list. They can't click on the list, but they can contact that agency staff. And he contacted a few these agency contacts to say, how many people are reaching out to you? And he said it was a big fat zero. So
right.
The information is out there in the public, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Mary Alice or Tom? Okay. Oh, nothing right at this time. Thank you, folks. Okay, next up, let's take a few minutes and go over the March meeting minutes. Unless everybody has already reviewed. I did review and I made some cleanup stuff on the front end. But does everybody need a little bit of time? We take a few minutes. Or has everybody already reviewed? Yeah. Okay. If everybody's already reviewed, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the minutes be approved as circulated.
Thanks, Mary. And Robin with the second. All right. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the March 2024 meeting minutes, please say aye and raise your hand. Okay. Is that everybody? Dawn, are you going to abstain? Oh, okay. There you go. All right. Unanimously approved. Thank you, folks.
You know what, Onona, can I change mine to abstain? I wasn't here last month.
Okay, no problem. Steph abstained. Okay. In that case, I think I have to do a roll call, right?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So, Onona, aye. Michelle?
Aye.
Okay. Robin?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay. Mary?
Aye.
Okay. Dawn?
Aye.
Steph?
Sorry, abstain.
Okay, thank you. And Tetsi?
Aye.
All right. Okay, thank you. So I have 8 ayes and 1 abstention. Motion passes. So the March meeting minutes are approved. Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. And thanks again to ERP for prepping these minutes. Very detailed and in a very timely manner. I appreciate that. All right. So any questions? All right. If not, Michelle, I'll hand it over to you for the exemption committee update.
Thank you. We met just now from 12 to 1, and we had 2 agency lists that we were reviewing, DHHL and State of Hawaii School Facilities Authority. The majority of the meeting was spent on DHHL's list because it was very long, very thorough. We had a really good discussion with them today. They're going to go back and revise the list. A big part of the revision is they were trying to make the list apply both to lessees, to individual homeowners, and the agencies themselves. And so the list was really long and really, they were trying to sort of cover everything. But, through our discussion, we identified that probably there's a lot of things that don't fall under 343. It may work better under an internal DHHL form to homeowners rather than in, the 343 exemption list. So
Go
So
ahead, Mary.
DHHL will, oh yeah, sorry. Sorry, Mary Alice,
Oh, I do have a question, Chair, if I can ask Michelle
Go
a
ahead.
clarifying question. Does DHHL require its homestead beneficiaries to submit an EA if they make changes or additions to their homes?
this question was asked, not we discussed the fact that if there's no right, I mean they're on state lands, but if there's no discretionary permit, then they're not, sort of in the realm of 343. Then as applicants, they haven't triggered it because it isn't the agency taking the action. It's an individual, beneficiary taking the action. So we sort of discussed exactly that point in the meeting. And
so those individual single homes would be an automatic exemption under the statute, though. Is that correct?
Well, now knows that.
Yeah, so stepping back to your original question, does DHHL require them each to do EAs? I don't know, and we did not answer that question. My feeling was no, but they were trying to expand their list to cover all of the things homeowners do, primarily from the maintenance standpoint. So if you're putting solar up, or if you have to do hazard abatement for, asbestos or something. And so once we understood what they were trying to do with their list, it went into a conversation with Michelle, myself, and with Tom. And we got to that question. We're like, well, wait, aren't they? We would consider them applicants. So unless they have a discretionary approval, they shouldn't even be triggering 343 at all, right?
No. That would have been my assumption. So that's why I'm asking the question.
And what we didn't find out on the call is whether it is discretionary or, when they, when a beneficiary wants to make improvements to their home, what's that process like? So they're sort of going to take our feedback back and then inform us better on their process and then maybe the better way to organize the list.
Are they layering an unrequired requirement on their homestead beneficiaries that isn't required under 343, but including it in their handbook of guidelines just for efficiency's sake?
We suggested, that maybe they take another look at their list and have kind of, separate guidance for beneficiary actions versus stuff DHHL does, right? Because as we went through their list, we're saying, okay, well, if you're doing hazard abatement on one house, that's one thing. But if you're doing it on 250 houses, maybe that's something different. And so where we ended up after, quite a lengthy conversation was a suggestion that they go back and take another look at their list, pull out all the stuff, specific guidance to individual beneficiaries, which, in our mind, again, we would treat them as applicants for this purpose, right? So unless they have a discretionary approval, they're not in 343 versus what is the stuff DHHL is actually doing and would exempt from itself in terms of development. So that was really the big conversation. And then the other thing was, they one of the proposed changes that they were trying to do was basically taking our affordable housing exemption and putting it into their exemption list, but they wanted to know if they could modify it so that it would apply not just to affordable housing, but to all DHHL development.
Homestead
and so so it's just homestead development, period. So that's an interesting question that they said, hey, so can we not do it? And we told them, well, we haven't researched the issue, and off the top of our heads, we weren't prepared to give an opinion. Of course, we suggested they speak with their AG. But it was a discussion, I guess, we wanted to kind of bring back to the council as well, because, we did give the history of that exemption and why it was very specific to affordable housing. It was vetted through the public. And, we asked them point blank, really, have they actually tried to get a legislative exemption? Because at least to me personally, that makes sense for DHHL, given the mission of DHHL.
The DHHL is exempt from zoning. So the exemption in 343 rules that would that says you have to be in a county zoned area, county zoned for residential, doesn't even apply to them.
Sure. That portion they had deleted, but for to develop housing, period, right? I mean, we use the term affordable housing, right? So
Good point.
that was more the question on
Good
could
point.
HHL developments be exempt altogether? And at least again, for me personally, I was curious if DHHL ever sought a legislative exemption in 343 period for a homestead development.
Good point, because I think they lost that case before the state Supreme Court quite a while ago. That this court and Allison and you, Onauna, can clarify. But my understanding was they are not exempt from 343. They're just exempt from all county level zoning, state and county level zoning.
Right.
That puts them in conflict with the actual verbiage in the exemption for affordable housing that says they have to be consistent with county zoning. So they were trying to modify the language, but we didn't know if an exemption list is the tool to be modifying the language in the rules. So,
oh no, you're right, absolutely.
Right, particularly under a Part 1 exemption.
It sounds. I'm sorry I missed the conversation. It sounds like it was very interesting.
It was a really good conversation. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop everybody really quick. Hi, Jay. I noticed you're on. If you want to go ahead and just say your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Jay Stone.
Hi,
I've
Jay.
applied to be on the council. I'm just waiting for word.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll talk more about that after. Well,
Okay.
let me just say it now. Have they contacted you yet? Boards and commissions?
I don't. I've been searching in my email. I don't see anything related to the Environmental Advisory Council or the person's name that you gave me, Wendy Kondo. So I haven't received anything, and not in an email.
Not in an email, no calls. Okay. All right.
No, I haven't noticed. I haven't seen anything yet, and I haven't seen anything in my spam filter either.
Thank you. I know everybody would be curious, so I decided to just ask you now instead of tabling it, but we'll talk more about that after. So thank you.
Sure.
But yeah, Mary Alice, if you're available next meeting, DHHL will be back, and I think your perspective, if you have the time, would be really valuable on that call to join us.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Thank you, Chair.
Michelle, did you want to give the SFA update?
Yep. And so the other list we reviewed was the School Facilities Authority. We didn't know how far we would get in that list, but actually they had made all the changes we requested from January, from when they submitted the list originally. Very minimal changes, just one, I think, change. So it's not on the agenda, but I guess, Allison, it's a question for you. Can we take an action to approve the list with amendments to publish for a 15-day public review? That's the Hawaii School Facilities.
Yes.
Oh, great. Super. I guess.
Wait, we can't vote to approve it for the public comment period? All right, because I didn't have it on the agenda either.
Okay. No, do you want to?
Oh, because
it was just we have an update, but I didn't know if we could, just so that they don't have to wait another month for their list to go public.
I know. I think she's
because it just says update and not
the action. Yeah. I told Michelle I can add it for next month if that was intent. So yeah.
Okay, then next month we will take an action to vote to send the School Facility Authorities list out for 15-day public review period. And that's all I have for now.
Thanks, Michelle. Anybody have any questions regarding the exemption committee update or comments? Okay. Thanks, Michelle. All right, then I will hand it over to Mary and Dawn for any INO update.
We're just waiting for Michelle to be available. So stay tuned. We don't want to burn her out.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I do have a question, somewhat related. So, if some people are terming off, then do we all have to join each other's committees to keep the committees going?
I think committees can, if it's less than 3 people, they could just meet without they're not subject to Chapter 92, is my understanding, right?
Okay.
I know Maka'ala did join our
Yeah,
last
it's
meeting
just
as
two
a member of
people.
the public. Thanks, Allison. So, and Ron was supposed to join last month, but I think he had some other stuff to do. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. And I mean, going back to, Jay, thanks for your update. I've provided our internal lists to boards and commissions, reached out, gotten an email saying they're working on it. I've not heard anything, Mary Alice, at this point. I don't know if you have any pull with them. So I know they're working on getting appointments for different boards right now. I'm hoping they'll do this one soon, because yeah, we're down to 9 right now. I think me and Steph can only hold over until November at the latest, and then I'll stay as long as I can, guys. But
I'm the same as you and Steph.
Mary, yeah. So I mean, it's Robin. I think you're same for you. So I'll keep pestering them. I Like I said, I've sent emails. We've had folks. I think Senator Gabbard or I know Robin did reach out to Senator Gabbard. So we reached out to Scott. Yeah, I'm not sure what more we can do at this point. Go ahead, Steph.
Well, and forgive me, but I do, if it's you and I, but as Mary said, it's her as well. But I also want to say it's Robin and Tessie. So
Yeah,
it's
Robin.
It's the council.
yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It would make it very hard for the council to be functional, post summer. So I find that's just mind-boggling to me. And thank you to all of you who have worked so hard to try to get boards and commissions aware and responding.
Well, I just think about, when we all joined, we had a little bit of a dysfunctional body because there wasn't, well, at least we had Joseph and Scott to train us, and Maka'ala was in place. But if we all go off, then that's going to leave Michelle and Rachel and Dawn. And they're all very talented people in their own rights, but there won't be that depth of, institutional knowledge that can, save a lot of spinning wheels.
Right. Yeah. So points well taken, folks.
That was for Mary Alice. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I heard that message. I've made a note, Chair, to try and see what we can do. No promises. You guys have as much pull as I do, but I'll try.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we'll keep, trying to, I guess, exemption committee, aka me and Michelle, will process as many as we can while we're a committee. So that the agencies hopefully don't get, held up, right? And I think Tom, at that point, if a new council is not in place, and we'll just have to remind folks they can use their list, right? It's just not concurred with essentially by the council. We can't stop them from using their list. So
correct.
Yeah, so that might just be part of the education process. So, but yeah, thank you everybody for hanging in there. We're working on it and we'll continue to work on it and hopefully get some appointments in the next very soon so that they can be heard before session ends in May. All right. Anything else on INO update or on this topic? Thanks.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Robin, turn it over to you for any legislative updates. I listed just a couple of the bills we were following the last time. And then, we still have your list that you prepped with, kind of that first tranche which I think was pre-crossover. So I don't know if there's
Yeah,
any.
the only one, can you hear me?
Yep.
The only one that's moving forward is the first one on the list on the agenda, HB 2358. All the rest that we've followed have not been moving. They've been re-referred or deferred. But 2358 is now, it's past housing and AEN and it's now in WHAM. So it's got legs. And that's really it. To my knowledge, and Mary Alice, please correct me, but the one other than that particular bill, the ones we've been following are not moving. 2406. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Robin. Has WHAM issued a hearing notice for 2358?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
Okay. We may have to send them an email to schedule, because I believe they have to be scheduled by Wednesday or Thursday this week, or Friday.
Okay. Yeah, nothing scheduled as of today.
Yeah, they've been.
Let's see.
Ways and Means isn't putting a lot of them on decision-making agendas.
No, it's
we'll
not
do that.
Yeah, I just looked on the site and Onan, if you did, I missed hearing it, but it's not been scheduled.
No.
And it's at risk of dying.
And the 2358 has been amended on both sides such that it basically just it acknowledges that affordable housing is to be considered as an exempt, an action that can be exempted. So it doesn't do anything other than reiterate what's in the rule.
Okay.
The ag portion was removed, and the ability for it to be excluded from the 343 process was removed. So as it stands now, it just reiterates that affordable housing is a type of action that can be exempted.
So it would be noticed, at least in the exemption notices.
Yeah, you still have to go through that process. Yes.
That's good.
With or without this law.
Right.
The green fee bill, as I'm sure you've all seen, have died. None of the ones, even though they coalesced around HB 2406, that didn't move far enough either. So, and the papers, I saw that one written up, so that died. So that's basically my report.
Thank you, Robin. Mary Alice, Tom, are there any other legislation that you folks are following that's still moving through?
Yes, but what we're tracking and testifying on a number of affordable housing bills still. That's the primary testifiers are out of our land use division. And so there's ones that we think will help fund transit-oriented development, infrastructure and housing around both Oahu and Neighbor Island transit corridors. And so that's probably the bulk of the ones we're still tracking. There isn't anything for coastal zone management. There's a couple of things that may still be alive. One amends the definition of development in the SMAs. And that's something we keep a close eye on. And there's one that is going to be heard on Thursday at Ways and Means to update the Hawaii State Plan Law. This is that very broad overarching law that provides guidance to the state, and that the Office of Planning has been charged with coordinating. And of course, that's because it has lots of conflicting goals and objectives. It's an interesting challenge in terms of looking at what's the right balance between some of those conflicting or competing needs for land use and other resources? And what kind of trade-offs does the legislature representing the public's interests want to make in terms of, which objectives to work on now and which they don't go away if you don't work on them, but where's the right balance? And of course, that leads to all kinds of exciting discussions, because there are, as many views of what should be the highest priority as there are residents of the state of Hawaii. So we're watching that.
Is there any effort to make it shorter? Sorry.
Updated. Shorter, probably. Yeah, that would make it easier. But Chair, I don't think so. I think the effort is to look at it, and some of the outdated stuff. There's still a reference to sugar cane and pineapple, things like that. But there are other things that our phase 1 study that was done in 2018 found that were outdated and should be reviewed by the public and by the legislature when we have a recommendation for them.
Thank you. Sorry, Robin, go ahead.
On a different bill, just those of you on the neighbor islands like myself, pay attention to a bill called HB 1919. It's kind of a sly under the cover bill that's been, it first arose in 2019, and it's now resurfacing in conjunction with an effort to deal with the Alawa Yacht Harbor, and it's DOBOR trying to get private development of small boat harbors.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very editorially, a very sneaky way to do it. But I would just alert my fellow nonprofit neighbor island people. I've had a lot of conversation with senators and reps this morning about this bill, and it's going to hit the floor in probably 3 or 4 days. So take a look at it. It sets up a pilot project for county in any county with a population of less than 900,000.
What was that bill number again, Robin?
HB 1919.
And then to add to that, there's a resolution, a concurrent resolution that I can't remember the number of, that authorizes DOBOR to enter into contractual agreements to operate, to make alternate arrangements to manage small boat harbors statewide. And I know some people are quite concerned that will put for-profit management companies in charge of recreational boat harbors.
Yeah, it's the same argument here. When the bill came up in 2019, it was targeted for Pulamulanai to take over. Pulamulanai, for those of you that don't know, is Larry Ellison's company that manages his properties on Lanai. And so the DOBOR has been trying for years to have private developers take over some of the harbors, and it hasn't passed. But I'm just alerting you to it. It's coming up. Take a look at it, and especially those of you on Maui and the Big Island and Lanai and Molokai, they're coming for your harbors, so be aware.
Thanks, Robin. Mary Alice, the SMA bill that you mentioned that's amending the definition of development, do you happen to have the bill number for that?
Unfortunately, I don't. I didn't bring my phone with me today.
No problem. I'll go ahead and look it up. I was just curious.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from Legislative Committee, Robin? All right. Any questions, or anybody else have any other interesting legislation they're following? No? Oh, go ahead, Allison.
Sorry, not about this. I just wanted to clarify something about the the exemption committee update. Okay. So I looked really quickly. You can take action on an issue arising out of an agenda item. even if it doesn't say that a decision will be made. But in this case, it doesn't actually, the agenda doesn't include mention of the exemption list.
Okay,
So I guess
understood.
going forward, it might be better to just include it in the agenda, even if, just put bullet point SFA, the exemption list.
We'll do that. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah. So, but even if it doesn't say a decision will be made, you can make a decision as long as it's in the agenda.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so moving on to item number 7. So I put a couple of things under the strategic plan update. I have, really just our continued discussion from last time of how we might assess, OPSD, right, in terms of discussing certain items. I think where we left off last time, and if you guys look back at the minutes, we generally talked about a process of if there's a question that comes up and Mary Alice wants to reach out to one of us who has a specific subject matter expertise, she can go ahead and do that. Everybody's pretty willing to do it. We previously discussed maybe doing a pig, but that fell off after further discussions with the council in past months because of a want to have these group conversations and getting the different perspectives. So I added it again onto this agenda. I don't know if there's anything further, if anybody's thought about it that they wanted to add, and if we're kind of comfortable where we are, then that's fine too. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't additional stuff.
Yeah, I think it's I think when I read over the minutes this morning, I think the way we settled that issue was pretty good, especially given how small of a council we're going to be in the near future. If Mary Alice wants to talk to two of us, she will essentially have spoken to the Environmental Advisory Council.
Oh dear.
We hope that's not the case forever, but yeah, good point, Robin.
So feel free. I don't think you'd be violating any regulations, Mary Alice, but the issue, of course, as we said in the discussion last one, was timing. We're restricted to do it once a month, and if Mary Alice needs advice right away, not that she needs advice, but should she wish some, she could just target individuals who might be knowledgeable in that area. So, and I think we're all sensitive enough to most of us to the regulations, sunshine, to do it right. So, and I see you included. I put in here my thinking about what the Long Range Planning Committee chair and Legislative Committee chair would need to do. And I was just being at my most anal self. So hopefully whoever takes over those committees can just, like nobody else in my world, do what I tell them.
No, that's good, Robin. Sorry, before we skip to that, one final point is Mary Alice and to the council is if there was an issue that came up, say next week, and it was of such importance that we thought our council needs to meet. I mean, we do have regular meetings once a month, but we also have the authority to call a special meeting. So that's always an option too if something big was to happen again. But of course, the scheduling of this many people is always the problem, right? So we know first Tuesdays of the month are set aside for regular meetings, but yeah, if we need to, we can always schedule a special meeting. And we did that kind of frequently actually during rulemaking, right? Especially towards the end where we're having 2 meetings a month to push the rulemaking efforts through. So yep, there's that.
Chair,
go ahead.
on the emergency proclamation, so we're on the 10th emergency proclamation for the wildfires, and that still exempts a number of laws that the affordable housing emergency proclamation, 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th did not. So the question still remains, if not a temporary housing development over on Maui to provide temporary replacement housing for displaced Lahaina residents. Those seem to be pretty much covered under both the Maui County emergency proclamation and the fact that they are deemed temporary, but there will be some permanent housing that will be built. And so I think there's still a question mark of, how they will be treated vis-a-vis 343. and the various permits, discretionary permits that they may have been able to fast track by being under the emergency proclamation. I will say, and this is that the governor's office, state disaster coordinator, has been holding regular meetings with state agencies that have permitting authority to review with Maui County authorities various proposed projects and to go over the kind of information that those permits would require if they weren't under the emergency proclamation, so that in fact, the information is being submitted to the permitting agencies. It is going into the project files along with the emergency proclamation, which will then inform future agencies that work on those projects, the ones that end up being permanent, or the temporary ones that may be converted to permanent at a future date. But none of that is, those documents, letters with data in them, are not, at this point in the public purview. So they're, as public records, they will be available to anyone who wants to look at them. But there is no 343 process going on. So it's just a question that, I would, as this evolves and as we may have even more disasters based on climate change, I'm thinking this is something I want the council's thoughts on, but I can't frame a very specific question just yet because it is evolving quickly.
Sure, no, those are good points. Thank you. My gut reaction to that is I'm glad to hear that the information is being provided to the agency, who in this case has to make decisions quicker than normal to address the situation for Lahaina. And I know in past meetings, I think the last couple meetings we talked about, I think on the federal side, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, there's kind of that rapid assessment. I think you and Ron had brought up previously, right? Was it you or Ron talking about kind of a rapid environmental assessment?
I think
Ron was talking about it. Yeah, in an emergency situation. So I think that really does make sense from a 343 standpoint. And Tom and I had a conversation, last month about the after the fact permitting process. And, I know a lot of agencies do it and they require after the fact 343 documents, which to me, I actually don't think you can do it under the law, but that doesn't stop the agencies from requiring it. Right. And so it is a little bit of an interesting concept. After the fact permitting does happen, but to do an after the fact or EIS, right? The law says you're supposed to do it prior to implementation of the proposed action. So I honestly actually don't know that 343 allows for it, notwithstanding that you got to do it in a lot of situations. So I think that is an interesting question and kind of teasing that out because, doing a 343 document is not cheap. It's not quick, right? If you comply with the full process. So for these types of projects, is that where we really want to spend funding and time? If the information has already been done in some kind, maybe we got to talk about, and maybe not we, because I won't be on the council in a few short months, but in this situation, providing a process in the rules for kind of a rapid assessment so that it's not, a total no 343 done. But there's something. So I honestly don't know if doing that after the fact 343, to me, it just doesn't make sense. And that's my personal gripe with it. but I see why agencies require it because it's to make sure people don't just build stuff without doing the assessment. It's more punitive than it is, I guess, in compliance and fulfilling the objective of the law. That's my personal opinion. I don't know. Other folks may have different thoughts on that.
Well, it is, I think, reassuring to know that the State Historic Preservation Division is requiring documentation for both recordation of historic sites, architectural review, and of course, monitoring for EV at each step. And water allocations are being tracked, and any and wastewater, those are primarily county, but they have a state element. So the state agency that oversees the counties on that is involved, but it still means the public isn't. These are not public meetings. They're conducted just with state agencies and the county, Maui County officials. So I think you could say that none of the foundational laws are being ignored. They're all being tracked and documented. But the public's awareness of that and their ability to comment on it, now it's coming in very different form, which is when Mayor Bisson, meets on Wednesday nights at the Lahaina Civic Center and invites the entire community to attend and announces something, then there's an opportunity for people to ask questions and express concerns or appreciation. But it's not a structured process that leaves a record. It is very much more of a informal town hall process. Mm-hmm. So it certainly wasn't what the legislature laid out for us. It's ad hoc.
Yeah. Is anybody else that's participating in that more closely than we are thinking of? Has any working group been made to think about that process? I mean, I know on the there was from the other proclamation that didn't survive, but just internally, I mean, what efforts have been made to try
that
to
did have a working group? No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that Bill Beyond Barriers working group is no longer. Governor Green has, terminated that, and HHFDC's meetings are all public, all recorded, and all available for members of the public to provide testimony. And all actions are then there's a record. So that transition from an emergency proclamation to a process that is available to the public at all points. No, Chair, your question is good. There's a lot of, let me put it this way, there are so many different working groups on the Maui wildfires process that sometimes I have 4 meetings a week on that. But none of them are, these are internal meetings. There will be a public engagement process that Maui County is leading. They've hired a vendor. They're going to hold, I think, evening or day meetings with residents in different neighborhoods in Lahaina to discuss very specific questions about what kind of rebuilding they would be interested in or want to support. And some of those are based around what kind of infrastructure remains undamaged enough to be repaired and be up and ready to serve those property owners who want to rebuild. But yeah, tons of working groups, but none of them that really, you know, don't have a that, you know, the 343 structure at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting that there isn't kind of something being talked about that. I don't know if this group wants to agendize that and think about it more for the next meeting, or if anybody has thoughts on it now. Um, and I also know folks are probably a little hesitant to take on a big effort where so many of us are terming off soon. But yeah, I mean, it's something we can certainly continue the discussions on in the May meeting if everybody is open to it. I don't know, thoughts?
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
it seems the revisions. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah,
Oh,
go
you
ahead.
can go ahead.
It seems like the evolution of the proclamation, you know, is in response to, you know, the public challenges, right? To the structure and to the fact that it's not as transparent, you know, as 343, and so it seems that maybe change will come from those challenges. I don't know if that's
Mm-hmm.
that it'll continue. The process will continue to evolve as groups, you know, are vocal about not getting to see, not being in the room where it happens.
I was going to say the lay person, you know, I was over on a personal thing to see my chiropractor, and their house is right next to the cemetery in Wyola Church. And they're like, yeah, we're going to build our house and then we're going to build a cottage. And I was like, oh, where's your cottage? And they're like, oh, it's in setback, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I think that just telling him, I think that's a really bad idea because, you know, the proclamation is not a clear cut, you can dig anywhere and build. And I think there is miscommunication about that. The other thing is Shifty is so busy that there's no response from that department for any other things besides probably Lahaina, which is fine. I heard about the vendor. It was very interesting because I had not seen anything about the vendor, maybe on a couple websites, but I hadn't heard anything so far. But on a good point, the school opened up April 1st for the kids in a cleaner environment, which I wish that all of Lahaina would be thought of in that way and not just rebuild, you know, in the same place because the funds are available from FEMA. So I hope there is some good planning going there. I have seen some meetings on the local side, but I think a lot of people are still really struggling with housing and keeping jobs and trying to get to appointments. I do hear that a lot of people are moving to FEMA housing now, but they can't see the housing ahead of time. They have to just take it. And so that's very hard, I think, too. So I think there's a lot of moving parts, like Mary Alice says. And I think, you know, in 4 weeks, we're going to see something completely different than what exists today. So.
Thanks, Dawn. Any other thoughts? Mary Alice, I have a question to you just from, I guess, my own knowledge. Has there been any discussions on, I guess, the shoreline retreat in the Lahaina area? I mean, I know that's very touchy, but I'm just curious in terms of, um, I mean, I think everybody knows, right? I mean, that's something the state's pushing, and we're just curious to see how it's going to work for places, right?
Actually, let me respond to your last statement because that I think it does help for clarification. The state is not pushing managed retreat. What we are doing, using our federal funds from the CZM federal program, is have a vendor looking at legal frameworks for managed retreat. If managed retreat became the only option or a option that a community would choose. And the reason I'm phrasing it that way as you pointed out, Chair, communities that lie along within the sea level rise exposure area and right along the shoreline have not expressed a desire for managed retreat. It's just the opposite. They, this is a human thing. They want to stay in their communities. They like their communities. They would like to protect those communities. The discussion about managed retreat at this point is more of a very future looking. What happens when, that community can't exist any longer? The water is, washed away the homes, or, you have to get there with a rowboat or something like that. So I think we have to be really careful about saying the state wants managed retreat. No, we just want to know what we'd have to do legally, have that work in place, have those plans ready when a community either wants or needs managed retreat. Does that make sense, Chair?
It does, and I appreciate your perspective on that. And I will play devil's advocate just because I am aware of folks who would interpret certain state decisions differently in terms of not letting them take certain actions on their property. Where at least I think some are of the opinion that at least in certain areas the state's forcing them to do that, right? But again, it's a matter of perspective, and I like the way that I understand what you framed. And I would, yeah, I can see the state. That's the ultimate goal. On an individual basis, I think some folks might feel the other way, right? Where if they're in a risk area and they can't do anything, then yeah, they frame it differently, basically. Yeah.
No, I have seen EAs by shoreline property owners that would like to protect their properties, but Chapter 205A, the CCM law, now makes it very hard for them to do that. And in some cases, the county's SMA permit process seems to be requiring them to move their structures back Malka of the shoreline setback, which may make it in some cases impossible for a property owner to make changes to their home. That feels like they're being forced into managed retreat. It's not our overall policy at all, but it is something that as the counties implement Chapter 205A, has started to be an issue. So I agree with you on both points.
Yeah. I think, yeah, again, it's kind of two sides of the same coin, right? I mean, the goals ultimately, and then when you look at it on more of a micro level, it impacts people differently. So yeah, I was just curious. Thank you for sharing that perspective. That's very interesting.
We will share with the council the results of our study on the legal framework for managed retreat as soon as the vendor's finished with that. I'm not sure exactly when it's due to be submitted to us. First, there'll be a draft. We'll comment. It'll go back and forth a few times, probably some changes, but we will have a final report on it. And it will be a resource if and when we reach a point, and this could be in 2100. It's not necessarily in the next, but you never know. People will cite what happened to Hilo in 1961 as an example of when Mother Nature didn't ask permission. It just, wiped out, most of Hilo town. So there are. That's why we went ahead and contracted for a study on what the legal framework for that would be. just to have that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? Okay, well, thank you, folks. So now moving back to the second point Robin raised was this was our homework to the committee chairs from last time, was making a list of basically our transition notes, right? Action items that we need to take, or what should the next chair of the committee do? Some of this stuff we actually do have a good start, and I reattached our last version of our updated policies and procedures. So for this time, I mean, I guess for the next meeting, if committee chairs who haven't yet had the chance to do so, take a look at that, see if there's anything that needs to be updated. Thank you, Robin, for your additional notes. We'll work that into, I think, the policies and procedures document for next time for legislative committee and strategic planning committee. And then, yeah, I got to work in some more stuff for the next chair as well. But yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, thank you for resending that. This version that you sent, which I have dated from February, just a quick look under the annual report. B needs to be adjusted because OPSD doesn't have an annual report.
However, CCM
found
does.
out the hard way. Let's change that so we can help whoever comes next avoid any sort of lack of clarity on that.
Do you mind sending me some language to drop
Yeah,
in for
I can mess with this and send it back to you.
Sounds good. And I can after this meeting actually circulate the Word document to everybody if
That
that's
would be
helpful.
great. Yep. Because is this a PDF that you sent us?
I think it's all the stuff we attach are PDFs, but I'll send the Word doc out, and then
Yeah.
to the extent anything needs to be, updated with the goals of, what are our action items, I guess, in the near term that we need to do, and then just transition notes really to the future council. I think that.
I have one other question in looking at Robin's sort of good points to chairs for the committees that he's responsible for. I really don't see that necessary for the annual report. I think, it speaks for itself. And in my opinion, the procedures that are laid out, particularly once they're corrected around OPSD's annual report, should suffice.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, Mary, I think you're okay. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Mary. Okay, Mary has to leave a little early, folks. Okay, well, yeah, if the remaining, so it's me, Steph is gonna look at it, and I think, yeah, Robin's already done his. And then Michelle, if you have anything, you can take a look at the exemptions portion. Ron largely drafted that in the past anyway, so I think it's pretty comprehensive for the exemption.
We reviewed it when he did it, but I'll look again.
Okay. Yeah, so let's do that for the next meeting. All right. Thank you, folks. Any other questions on action items and transition for future council? All right. So we're looking at Tuesday, May 7th for our next meeting. Maria, go ahead, Robin. Yep.
I'm sorry. I haven't looked at the draft policies and procedures recently. I've looked at them a couple of times, but not recently. Is there a master calendar in there for the subsequent EAC?
No, in terms of when things need to be done.
Yeah, it might be really helpful. I mean, I was thinking about what Steph said. So it might, for example, say, well, I'll use mine as an example. The legislative committee needs to meet in December, and yada yada yada, so that if there are key timing issues for EAC, maybe a master calendar would be something to add to it.
Okay. Yeah. So, oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, point taken. I think, and folks can correct me if I'm wrong, the only hard actual calendar deadlines are for legislative committee and annual report in terms of getting things done. The other timing deadlines really have to do, like I know, for example, in terms of how far you do things pre-forum, right? Which we have in kind of the forum I believe, checklists. So if Dawn, you and Mary don't mind taking a look at that one again and see if it needs to be refined further in terms of when do you book people, when do you send out the flyer and all of that. And then for exemptions, likewise, it's not a calendar deadline set, but it's depending on when they submit stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah. And I know our policies and procedures currently do include for legislative committee, the December, you got to go talk to legislators, and January, make your list of all the bills. And then for annual report, we have a working backwards deadline. I believe we do already have that in there.
Okay. All right. Sorry to be redundant.
No, it's okay. But if you want to put it, do you want like a graphic format? It would really just be for ledge committee and.
Yeah, no need. If it's only ledge and steps committee, no need. That's
Okay.
fine.
I can play around. Well, I'll see what time I have and I'll try to, if time permits. Jay, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, your question about, I guess, future council, and listening about like who's going to be on, who's not going to be on. I guess, is there like assuming that I am on the council, and actually for anyone else who's going to be on the council, since a lot of people are going to be stepping down, is there some sort of place to go, or will there be people to help assist with that transition?
Yeah, so ideally, we had hoped to get new members appointed during term so we could transition folks by learning, which is kind of, like with Michelle coming on, with Dawn coming on. We're all supposed to have staggered terms. That's the thing, right? And like Rachel came on, right? About, all of these folks came on a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago. So that would have really been the training. But part of this, policies and procedures document that's attached to the agenda is meant to kind of help with that. Putting that aside, at least I'll speak for myself, and others can offer if they want to and not if they don't. But even if I'm off, before you start, I'm happy to, still talk story with folks and help, share my knowledge or my experience. And of course, you don't have to do it the way it's always been done. If you can think of a better process, that's always welcome too. Yeah. So
Same here.
Thank you for that.
I'll be open, Jay, for you if you need some assistance. I'd be good to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jay, and it's one we've been thinking about too. Those of us that are staying on, that are relatively new, that I mean, really, we have to see, as we get a new group, if and when we get a new group of folks, what take what the council has done and decide, what we need to continue, what we want to continue. I mean, really, there'll be a right, or we'll have to do that, I think, as a group. And so it may not, I mean, these policies and procedures are amazing and, tell the story of how it has been. And I guess it will be up to the new council to decide what.
Yeah. And like I told Rana Makaala, I was like, just because you're not on doesn't mean I'm not calling you, so whether you like it or not. So, I think everybody on here, I mean, everybody's serving for a reason. And so if you want to call or ask questions at any time, again, I won't speak for everybody, but I would guess everybody's pretty okay with that. Go ahead, Don. Don and then Stephanie.
Oh, I was just going to say that, I think everybody, you can reach out to anyone who turned off, although I think Ron is on vacation for 2 months, so you can't call him. But I do hope that there are other members who are introduced and reconfirmed, before Ledge is out for sure. And I think I agree with Michelle about maybe those other members might actually not want to have anything to, they might just want to do a free-for-all spaghetti on the wall type thing. So you never know. Yeah.
Thanks, Don. Go ahead.
I think too, it's kind of exciting to think about, right? And this transition, as they can be scary and also great opportunities. And, this really could be a place for triage. If there's 5 people on the committee, then you do what you absolutely need to do. And, that's understandable at that time. So, yeah, and give us a call.
Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay, and I'll keep working on trying to get you in there, because I told them, I was like, I know we have applicants. We have at least 2 that I know of that have applied. But yeah, Tuesday, May 7th, next meeting is what we're looking at, unless everybody cannot. Couple of reminders, annual financial disclosures are due May 31st. So I think you folks all should have gotten an email from the ethics committee. So make sure you get that in. And then the last thing was, I got an email yesterday from HCPO. They're looking for, if anybody did want to do a presentation, you got to get your proposals in actually by this Friday. So I don't know if that's, I think others on this council have brought it up in past meetings about potentially doing some kind of a forum or whatnot. So I don't know if there's anybody interested in doing that. So if there is, we got to get it in by Friday is the only thing. So
are we unmuted? Michelle, April Supernaut is the Hawaii County Planning Department lead for HCPO this year. So you could reach out to her if you wanted to, put together a panel or help out in some way.
She's also my neighbor, so that would be easy to have that conversation.
There you go.
So maybe an exemptions panel.
Right. I'll talk to April.
Okay.
Great. All good.
Yeah. And okay, to the extent anybody wants to do anything, I'm happy to help you guys try to pull something together before Friday. I don't necessarily think we do a whole thing on the rules, since we did so many of those when they were first rolled out, but unless there's any particular aspect that folks want to focus on. For example, I know, again, INO was already planning an exemptions forum, so that could be a potential place to do it. I don't know, any other thoughts? Okay. Well, that's all I have. Any other announcements or housekeeping items that I might have forgotten? Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It is 2:16 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn. And oh, wait, sorry, real quick. Okay, so agendas. May 7th is our next meeting. So agenda deadline is going to be April 26th. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so April 26th is the agenda deadline. And then if anybody also has, please take a look again at the policies and procedures. If you have any edits, please send it to me by April 26th so that we can get it in, this revised document that'll be attached to the agenda. Committee agendas and any items that need to be put on the full council agenda also should be identified at that time. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.
Mahalo, Nana. Aloha, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Mahalo. Aloha.